That's nice. If you are a brand owner out there, invest on your own food safety plan and HACCP. You might be saying, Arnel, I'm not manufacturing my own product. Here we go again. Hello again, PCQI. Thank you for joining this segment. Basically, this is part of our PCQI roles and responsibility, obviously internal audit. So in this internal audit series, we're going to be looking at agreements or contracts, and we're going to have some questions that we prepared when we're looking at these type of agreements. So this particular type of agreements, there's a lot of different type of agreements or contracts. So specifically what we're talking about here is basically between a customer requirement and the facility. It has nothing to do about financial responsibility, commissions, cost of products, and things like that. This is specifically an agreement or a contract between food safety or a quality agreement. You also will see those. So if you search those, there's some wonderful templates that's provided on the internet. So if you need more specific agreements, please contact your legal department or contact us, and we can share with you what we do in dissecting these type of agreements on behalf of our clients. So first things first, I looked at here one of the questions I have, and I'll go through these series of questions. Does your agreement include training obligation to meet specification and GMPs? So these are the type of agreement if you're dealing with a brand owner, or if you are a brand owner and you're dealing with a co-packer or co-manufacturers, you might want to take a look at that. Or you are a manufacturer and you have a co-packer, part of your process is being outsourced, you might want to include that question. Next part is, do you have a written agreement for suppliers, vendors, and or service providers? So this is another part of a different type of agreement. We talked about the customer requirements. Now, you are the customer in this part of it, and do you have these type of agreement set with your supplier, vendors, and or service providers? Do you have a written quality agreement in place? So going back now with these type of agreements, are the your specification for quality, are they there for, or let's say organoleptic for the smell, taste, size, etc., of your specified requirements? And then there's another part here. This is basically a legal or insurance questions. We work with some of those providers as well, so we inputted one here. Have you agreed to indemnify or hold harmless any suppliers of components of raw materials or any other parties? So that's kind of a part of an agreement section. And the other part is there a contractual risk transfer back to the co-packer/supplier regarding product liability? As you can see, that involves some of that for product liability question. And then if no, do you routinely test for this in your finished product provided by others to ensure that the product conforms to your specification? So that's a very good point. So or addition to the agreement, when you're looking at it, sometimes you have an emergency provider, something happened, you need to deviate from your main supplier because they can't supply you, and now this clause is implemented on that contract. So what do you do when that product arrives at your facility? Do you routinely test for that, or do you test for certain pathogens or toxins into that from that material? Does your agreement include compliance requirements? Right, it's all about compliance. Food safety verbiage, GMPs, HACCP or food safety plans, OSHA or environmental. Depending on your standards as well, you might want to take a look at those because there might be some additional ones that you might want to add. Does your agreement include procedures or processes such as manufacturing, testing, packaging, or storage, and others? Okay, so you might want to be more specific on that. Does your agreement include maintenance of the quality unit? All right. The other part is, does your agreement include notifications like changes, specification, formula or recipe, the corporate structure of ownership and operations. Now let me touch base on this one. So sometimes I deal with deviation on recipe or formula. So we have clients that would call us and basically says, "Hey Arnell, we can't get this product. Our co-manufacturers and change the material to or material supplier from a different country or a different region. Do we need to do shelf life again? Do we need to do all of these things?" So it's nice that they're getting notified, but a lot of the times your co-manufacturing partners, sometimes if you don't have that agreement in place, they could be doing substitute or formula changes based on availability of materials. Same thing with the corporate structure or ownership and operation. So that's very, very important, especially when you already have that relationship with that particular person, and then they're going to retire, or the son or the daughter, the next in line is going to take it over, and they might not have the same food safety culture, or it's being sold to a third party or another conglomerate, and you want to be make sure that you're covered on that part of it. In all other structure, and you can have as much opinion as you can on that part of it, and that I've seen. But let's just move on. Does your agreement include right to audit program or plan? So that's very important. So I've been to plant, and this is the silliest thing, right? So I'm sent to audit a supplier where the supplier doesn't let you pass through the conference room. So they'll bring all of the binders and whatnot. And all of a sudden, they said, well, we can't really show you our proprietary process. And you're looking at it, but your client is about to sign a multi-million-dollar deal, and all of a sudden, this particular process don't want you to go to the next step of actually doing a visual verification of their design qualification, product qualification, and their operations and whatnot. So that's going to be a big flag. So during an audit, if you have a third-party auditor and basically reports it to the auditing body saying, I can't get past through this section during this audit, that's a big flag. So as a brand owner, or you're going to outsource your co-packing or co-manufacturing, you know what? Run away. Okay, you're just going to waste your time, waste your money and your budget and whatnot. Okay. Does your agreement include sharing audit observation, non-conformances, and corrective action to applicable parties? You're going to want to have that, because especially if your co-packer or co-manufacturing partner at this point, right, you need to have that openness. Because I look at these warning letters, and you've seen some of those videos or recall that we review and what we look at. Those happen because you don't have these type of sharing and this openness. They're just going to send you a certificate, and they got X amount of points, but then you don't see what they missed and how they corrected it. So sometimes you have these manufacturers that's kind of hide behind the certificate, but they don't want to share the rest of it because, it might, ruin our reputation and whatnot. Well, listen, your reputation is going to be ruined now because you're not even disclosing all of these things. And what are you hiding? We're partners in this thing. If I succeed, you succeed, we both grow together. If something happened, guess what? We're tied to the hips. It's not like my responsibility ends and I pass it on to you because you're my co-manufacturing partner. Well, guess what? It's also my brand, my name, my investment, right? And it's my consumers, and I need you as a partner to be able to work with me on that in providing these type of services and reports and whatnot to protect the public, right? So, okay, does your agreement include regulatory exchanges, such as regulatory audit notification, finished product food safety events, FDA warning letter issuance, food fraud vulnerability assessments, right? So these are you really want to take a look at that, especially if your co-manufacturing partner or co-packer was issued a warning letter, or FDA walked in the door, you're going to want to know that, so you could be prepared. It might, because it's going to affect your production as well, maybe your product, right? Same thing with the finished product food safety events. Some manufacturers, they mislabel things, or something happened that they have to put out a notice of recalling a product due to maybe a process control failure on allergens. Now that allergen kind of cross-contaminated one product. Now your product doesn't have any allergen to it, or you might have one or two, but it's not included in that grouping. But because it went through the same production line, you're going to have some concern, right? Did that cross over my my process or my finished product as well? Same thing with the food fraud vulnerability assessment, right? So if you're not very familiar with those, let us know. We can assist you for that. That we do those type of assessments and we report back to you. It's basically identifying your suppliers, your ingredients, and raw materials if they've been involved in some sort of a fraud in the market, and that then will be notifying you to the next step of what we need to do for that, or what we need to watch out for when that product is being reordered, and basically put our preventive measures for that. Okay, does your agreement include regulatory filings and regulatory status? So that's another part of it too. If your product needs to be submitted to USDA for label approvals, or through FDA, through different programs and whatnot, does that include that on there, or do you have to do it, right? Does your agreement include complaints and recall procedures? So that's a big one, okay? Especially if you are just a brand owner, or you are an influencer and you own your own brand. So how does that work for you, right? So you have to have a complaint program and a recall procedure, because you don't make the product, but you made money selling the product, so it falls onto you, right? As part of your responsibility to have these procedures in place. Okay, does your agreement include validation procedures? That's a big one. How do you validate that things are working properly, right? And they work what they were designed to do. So for validation list and procedures, contact us, and we have a whole list of validating your SQF, your BRC, your GMPs, your HACCP, your sanitation maintenance program, all of those things. We have those validation procedures for you. Does your agreement include qualification of critical systems? That's another one, okay? Does your agreement include record sharing? There you go. Same thing, make sure those are added. Does your agreements include documentation and record keeping? Does your agreement include annual product review procedures? Okay. On the annual product procedures, normally what we see is the deviation on the recipe or formula, and then the changes in the labels. Labels were changed based on claim or ingredient panel and things like that. And sometimes when we review those, we see a lot of errors on it that could trigger, an audit, okay, from the agency, because of those errors that were missed or not tracked for changes. Does your agreement include change controls? Yeah, we're talking about changes right there. Does your agreement include deviation procedures? Does your agreement include reprocessing or batch adjustment, reworks, and retesting? Does your agreement include finished product testing? That's an important one. On the finished product testing, if you're a brand owner, obviously you didn't make this product, okay? And if you are a manufacturer, you're making it for someone else. So how, there's got to be some product testing so you can show proof as a manufacturer that I met your requirements as my customer. Same thing, vice versa on the customer. Did you meet my requirements as my co-packer or co-manufacturing partner? Does your agreement include production and in-process controls, packaging and labeling procedures? This is where, that's very important. Sometimes, we miss those, kind of like, it's going to go to packaging, they're going to put a sticker on it and things like that. But then you want to have those written out, especially for label controls. I've seen in the line that they were producing a product, we'll just call it a red and blue label. Exactly, they're so similar. And the reason why they're just different, one is soy based and the other one is not. And technician was just changing the label. I mean, you can see it was red and then it turns into blue, and somebody caught it and says, hey, we're not running the soy product, and now they had to reprocess the first 15-20 minutes of those runs, right, and chase those again, and then document all of those, make sure it wasn't really soy. It becomes a mess after that, right? Does your agreement include storage, handling, warehousing, and distribution procedures? This is so important, especially when there's temperature controls. Like if your product is refrigerated or if it's frozen, you want to make sure those are written out, especially on your HACCP or food safety plan for your customer, or if you are the customer. So here's another point, and I'm going to add this on because it just kind of popped in my head. I had a client of ours at one point had us made a food safety plan for them as a brand owner, which I commend them on it, and they had their own process because they wanted to understand it and basically shop around on different co-manufacturers and basically says, this is the process flow and narrative that we want, these are the hazard analysis and the type of controls. That's nice. If you are a brand owner out there, invest on your own food safety plan and HACCP. You might be saying, Arnel, I'm not manufacturing my own product, I'm going to give it to the co-manufacturer. Where, if you don't have your requirements and specifications stated outright, there's a lot of heartaches and pains. For that. Number one, it's your investment. So it's kind of nice when you go to a co-manufacturer and you lay that out and they have their QA manager, director, or QC and whatnot, and they can see that you're well aware on your process, and your brand risk management and things like that. So that was kind of nice when we were requested to do that. Even though we didn't know their actual process at the time, and then when we met with the co-manufacturers, we kind of put two and two together, and it worked out really well, and they're doing good. So, okay, does your agreement include laboratory controls? That's another one, right? So if your product need to be tested, if it's different on your product specification, include those on there. Type of testing you want, perhaps the parameters of testing it against the HARPC requirements for whatever category of food safety plan or HACCP plan you have or you're under for your product release. Okay, does your agreement include testing, raw materials, and ingredient? So this one is, I have a lot of touch points on this, which I'm not going to bore you with them, but you need to have these things, especially you get these COAs and specification from vendors and suppliers. One example, I just recently did an audit, and the specification was 8 years old that was on file. The supplier claimed they never changed it, so it's the same specification and whatnot. So so the material was tested, and guess what? It didn't meet the specification declared from 8 years ago. Everything was off the chart, right? Whatever we tried to verify, within that spec sheet or the COA declaration did not match. There were so many deviations throughout the years that what we had was it was a very different material than on paper and on lab results, right, compared to the physical one. So make sure those are updated every year, okay? Does your agreement include stability and shelf life study? Right, so if you are a brand owner, right, and you're getting your product made, are you including that? And if not, are you going to do an actual one or an accelerated shelf life study for that? And who's going to be performing it? Obviously, you're going to be a part of it and working with your supplier to send the sample. So you want to have those written out. Does your agreement include recall, stock recovery, and or market withdrawal procedures? I know we talked about having recall procedures at on the previous question. It's bringing it back with added stock recovery and or market withdrawal procedures. So if if you are certified, if you are the manufacturer and you're outsourcing some of your process to a co-packer or co-manufacturer, and they had an incident, is your policy also require you to report that to the agencies or to the certification body, right? So you got to make sure that that's on the agreement as well, of what you need to do with that. As a brand owner, you look at that as well. It's like, okay, my co-manufacturing partner had an incident. What are my recall policy? What is my stock recovery? Do I want it back? Who pays? I know we mentioned financially, but you're going to start asking, so who pays for the recovery and the disposal and whatnot? So make sure that's on the agreement, who's supposed to be doing what and when. Does your agreement include animals derived materials for traceability of TSE, right, or transmissible spongiform encephalopathy? I always have a hard time pronouncing that, so forgive me to our science community when I butchered that word, right? So that concludes our internal audit review and questions. Thank you again, PCQIs, for participating and watching this segment. Till then, have a great day. Bye for now. Contact us. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks again, PCQIs. Have a good one.